Yo, what's good, guys? This is Theo here. So today I have Sketch.io Sketchpad open. I'm trying out something different, and I'm going to discuss with you guys MVC. So if you don't understand what this is in architecture. So we're just going to write MVC Architecture, and then I'm going to drag this sort of to the middle, and I'm going to discuss some basic concepts with you. So we're going to discuss the models. Drag that over here. We're also going to discuss the view, or the views, and we need to bring in one more concept, which is controllers. Okay, so let me take this, sort of make these a little bit smaller for my demonstration. Sort of, hopefully this helps people that are more visual. I know that, as long as it's not too complex, it's going to make a lot of sense. So MVC architecture, what is it and why should you care? MVC architecture, like I mentioned a little while ago, is model view controller architecture. It is a very popular design pattern for building software and building software applications, any form of engineering in terms of software. And so yeah, I guess I've said that, but what does that do for us? So imagine, right, you have, let me see, I'll use this pen, right? You have a code base, right? And it's going to start out at, 50 lines of code, and, you're working on it, and, right, maybe this is a JavaScript or a C# file. So whatever code you have, and, weeks go by or even months, right? And then your 50 lines of code, maybe a good example of this might be like a jQuery. So imagine you're using jQuery, and your 50 lines of code now have turned into 500 lines of code, and this is encapsulating everything, the full MVC. So you have all of your logic, you have your view. Actually, you have everything coupled together. There's really no separation of concern here. So you got all that, and you're thinking, well, this is just madness. I mean, you can go about, separating it out into different files, but what you quickly realize is that you're going to sort of fall into this architecture pattern where you're separating your models, your data, and your persistence from your logic, from the actual UI, the UX, what the client is seeing. So let's sort of discuss this, right? So you have an application that is an e-commerce website, and so at the very start, what happens is your user comes in and he clicks a link and it goes to products. So let me just write that out. It's going to go to products. Not the best at using this. This is like the second time I've tried it, so give me a break. So it's going to go into products, and this is going to make a HTTP GET request, right? This is going to come into your controller, and let's just say for this example, we're using Angular or ASP.NET MVC. Or maybe Angular, because I feel like a lot of people watching my channel can resonate more with that. And so this is going to be a, HTTP GET. So let's just write that out. And to products. And what's going to happen? So what we're going to see here is that the controller, hopefully, you have a sort of method, or maybe this isn't even. This could either be a button click, or it could just be a direct link to products. And so say you're using Angular and you're using a mean stack with Express. Your Express router has a method in place for this. What's going to happen is it's going to say, hey model, I'm going to need you to give me all the products. So give products. So just give data, okay, and give DB. And model's going to say, okay, cool. I'm going to do a select all from products. I'm going to give this back to you in your controller. What's also going to happen with the nature of Angular, you're going to do some data binding. So you're going to add this property onto your view model, and so that it's going to now encapsulate all your products. Your view model is then going to transfer it to the view. Okay, so your controller is going to send that data back to the view that is in charge of it, but the view really has, it doesn't actually know anything about the controller. So, if you try to make a link between these two, you could really just nix it, because in the end, the view does not care about the implementation of the model, how your data is being stored. It doesn't care. All it cares about is, my job is to show this data. So that's all I want to, really be able to do. So how can I do this? So when you see this, what you can do here, let me see if I can edit this. I don't know if it's letting me edit it. Let me see. All right, whatever. What you can do is sort of visualize this like your controller is your main nucleus. Okay, it's like your mainframe of your application. It's listening to event listeners from your view, as well as maybe migrations through database or updates. So it's the glue between your view and your model. The model doesn't need to know anything about the view, and the view doesn't need to know anything about the model. Each of these are interacting between this intermediary step, which is the controller, and ultimately what that sort of does for you is it allows you to sort of decouple your architecture in such a way that you don't have this very closely knit implementation that in the long run is going to lead you into problems and down bad alleys, because when you have 500 lines of code but you don't actually have any organization around it, what happens is that your software becomes very brittle to change, and in turn you're going to be more stressed out, productivity is going to go down, and the project is ultimately going to fall apart. So this isn't a one-size-fits-all solution to using MVC. A lot of times, I will admit, it is unnecessary. Say you're building a very basic to-do application and you don't have any persistence layer, you're doing it all in the application memory. Yes, perhaps this is a good scenario where MVC architecture might be too heavy, but I would say, if you get a job as a software engineer or a software developer, if it's a good job and they use best practices, you are going to use some sort of architecture, whether it's MVC or maybe you're using Django and Python where it's more of a MTV. But whatever it is, MVC really originates from the problem with using something like just jQuery or some sort of library and trying to do everything, really encapsulate all of your logic, your data transfer, your persistence, your UI implementation all in one file. And so MVC sort of provides more of a layout and sort of a stepping stone into building a more optimized and productive architecture. So those are just sort of my stream of conscious thoughts on it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and please subscribe and support the channel. So I will see you guys in the next video, and take care. Thanks.